drooled over those things. We're just gonna talk about Lego catalogs.
That's what my clone Daniel do.
We're not gonna talk about We're not gonna go that in depth. It's just how we wasted our time with Lego catalogs.
That wouldn't last very long. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the T.O.A Podcast. I am your host, Onvermel. Today, I have just my one brother with me, Zacta. Zacta, would you like to say hi to the many lovely people?
Hello, lovely people who I probably know 50% of.
There's a high probability of that. So, this is definitely going to be, I have no idea how this one's going to turn out just because the plan for this was a little thrown out the window, but I'm just going to bring up on a more of a general, broad basis of the Lego catalogs.
Broad, I'm good with broad. Hey, I know that idea.
So, How One and the Forgotten Toa. I'm just gonna say, no, we did not steal this idea from you guys, but I did a podcast first, so suck it. No, you know, so yeah, Lego catalog, which it's probably like as a broad sense, it's probably one of the weirder things to want to talk about, but we're gonna go for it. We're gonna see if we can get something going here.
And I like to think we'll do this a little differently than how our other podcasters have gone about it.
See, when I think of like Lego catalogs, one of the first thing that comes to mind, like a couple things come to mind. First off is because we are Canadian, and there was points where there was only American version catalogs. Like I'm not sure if it was just the catalogs that we got from Lego.com or if it came from like a big set or something, but I do know we had a couple catalogs that were in US prices and not Canadian.
The KK2 battery was the first Canadianly priced catalog that we acquired.
Okay.
At least broadly.
What my dear brother is trying to say is the summer 2004 catalog is a So yeah, KK2 Bag was just the 2004 summer catalog, which basically the cover had KK2 I guess not KK2 but Knight's Kingdom, which as locally or I guess as the fans have called it KK2 because it was a second iteration of Knight's Kingdom. And basically, well, it came when we were younger. We ended up using it as a battery for some games that we played.
Let's put it this way. For some reason, the three of us, including in this three, we just absolutely drooled over this one. And it somehow leaked into our Star Wars games where it was the power source for our starship.
We were very stupid kids. Let's just say that.
Needless to say, this catalog had a tremendous impact in our livelihoods.
I think definitely a large part of that catalog, though, it was a catalog that came out and it was a new castle theme. And we drooled over that catalog a lot. So it was like, and I think it was just a very fun catalog to look at all the new items into it because all the items in there were very much new and different. Like, because that's when Lego basically changed their color palette. And it seemed like just overall, even the designs of sets were different than they had previously before.
Well, I do remember having some hesitant question about it. I do remember being quite wanting of many of the sets. And I'm pretty sure it was also this one where we had Spider-Man 2 sets.
I believe so, because Spider-Man 2, I believe, also came out in 2004. But it was also like the first catalog that I think that was officially in Canadian prices. Because I remember, I think the backs of them, they would literally specify what prices. And all the ones that we had gone for before for Lego Shop at Home, basically, I think were American. I think we might have had one exception, but 90% of the time they'd be in American prices, just like our textbooks.
I remember going back and forth trying to figure out which way it was and thinking, is it $30 or $40? And with your comment on we may have had one other that was Canadian, I think the one that was always with Dad's train set, I think that was Canadian.
That would make sense because I think that one actually probably just came with the train set because our dad basically had a train set from the 90s, like a black and yellow diesel, and it actually just had a full size Lego catalog with it. Either it came with the set or we just got it because he ordered from Lego.com. I have no idea, but he had it. And I just remember that catalog being one of the coolest ones for two. I chalk it down to three reasons. One, it was a 2001 catalog, which means it had all the 2001 Bionicles in it. And I remember that'd be the only catalog that we had with them. And two, it had the year one, the original Alpha Team, a couple of their sets. But the biggest reason why this catalog was the coolest was because it had those cool
color
build my own or my own creation trains or something. I don't know exactly, but the cover to that with like the bridges and the trains, and then like those train sets were just sounding really, really cool.
I do need to still acquire one of those, but maybe tweak the bottom to look more proper.
Honestly, if I had the money, I'd totally pick up one of those sets. But like I said, I think a lot of my likeness out of them probably might come from that catalog's cover, and just I grew up with Thomas the Tank Engine, so it helped.
We had strange influences, though I have to take a small tangent just because we're talking about trains, but Dad's train was a very odd set if you think about it. Like, what kind of engine is that? It looks kind of like a futuristic train.
And it's just a weird diesel. That's all I gotta say. Like I don't know
A
how.
semi-truck in train form.
Have you seen Lego's cars and vehicles? Especially from the '90s, they looked very weird. Like, trust me, I can easily show you a bunch of them.
True.
They like using cockpits as roofs and stuff. Lego cars weren't always the most accurate vehicles, which is fine.
The charm of
But
Lego.
we definitely spent like a large part of our childhood, not necessarily of just looking at catalogs, like a lot. And definitely those catalogs led to dreaming about owning sets. Or what we actually started doing later is when we revisit old catalogs, we literally go through them saying, I have this, have this, have this. I got this whole page of sets, don't have this, don't want that. Like we literally do a check. It would almost be a checklist.
Basically a check.
And looking back at some catalogs now, I'm like, I have all of this page, I have all of that page, I have none of that page, I have half of this page. Like it is kind of fun looking back and seeing like what we have to them.
Well, we didn't have a whole lot of experience growing up in our younger years with, the 80s and 90s. I do know as we got older and, we had found ways of accessing it, the allure I found of catalogs was not what they were selling, but just the imagery that came with it. It was just so sharp back then.
See, I'm pretty sure my disinterest in looking at catalogs mostly came once I had money to spend. Basically, once I had a job and could just buy whatever I wanted, the idea of dreaming about sets was just like, yeah, whatever. And I just kind of bought sets.
Yeah, the last few years I've gone the odd catalog and I skim it just to see what's new. Nothing catches my eye because I bought everything I wanted already.
I mean, also nowadays, like, there's a couple things. One, everything's on Lego.com, so, we just check online. Two, I generally know about all the sets before they're officially released, so before the catalogs are out, because blogs and such, generally have pictures. So, generally, everything coming out, I already know about. So, and then also the catalogs I find just, yeah, as you were saying, like, the imagery, there's definitely an artistic style to the, like, the 80s, or sorry, the 90s catalogs, even the 80s and early 2000s. Like, they had a artistic style to, like, how they made the covers. Like, they had a lot more, like, actual photography of, like, stuff in, like, larger scale models or whatnot. And there's definitely, like, a style to it. And definitely, like, in the last, like, 10 years, like, just even that part of the catalog. I mean, let's be honest, Lego's also not trying to make the catalogs probably look as good anymore, because now they're just merely a formality. But I do still enjoy looking through I basically do still have a stash of catalogs, partially just out of nostalgia, but they're a good way to quickly figure out how much a set was back in the day. Because weirdly enough, looking up how much a set was worth when it came out, I find it's not as easy when you're trying to find Canadian prices. If you're trying to find what something was worth American, I find that's really easy, but Canadian I've always found is a little bit more difficult.
And the not so much the exchange rate, but the value of a set from Canadian to American was not a clear cut $50 or 40. Sometimes it was a little more obscure.
Yeah, it was kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
But with like those catalogs, I remember one of the coolest things was, because these catalogs were always in our parents' names, because they had the shop at home account and such. So it was always, I think it was always our mom's name that actually was always. However, in 2003, basically the catalog that came out basically introducing the Orient Expedition adventure theme, which I think was it was one of the 2003. I can't remember if it was the winter or summer, but whatever one it was, I remember for whatever reason, I don't know why, but it was in my name. It wasn't in my parents' name, but it was in my name, which means I got that catalog, which had some of the coolest sets, because of the Orient Expedition had the 2003 Star Wars sets, which were like the last sets to use yellow stars, like Lando, the up to 2 sets in there, and so I basically held this catalog as like, I'm the one who could drool over this until I give you permission. So it was like this holy grail catalog. However,
and we did ask for permission to look at catalogs.
Yeah, well, we were young little kids. You had to ask permission for everything. But it was the funny thing about this catalog was I'd misplaced it for quite a few. Okay, well, I thought I just lost it and it was just in the garbage, whatever. Like I couldn't figure out why it disappeared, but it. However, I ended up finding it in my one of my sister's like she just had like a bunch of like loose like papers and such in like drawers and such, and it was amongst her stuff. So I don't know why. I don't know why it was with her stuff. Like I not only found that, but I found a few of my Bonko comics that was missing, and I never got a straight answer. I'm not sure if she ever remembered why, but for whatever reason, she had my catalog and some comics that she already owned.
Either she was trying to mess with you, or she was planning to, ransom these to you at a later date.
I don't know. I mean, she is also the person who found one of my little like tiny little bears, like my little blue bear,
Yes.
and then basically kept it, but gave me a different one with a bow to make me happy. Like I don't know what my sister did. She just kept Angela. Sorry, Mithra. I love you. You're wonderful, but you were a very strange person back in the day, and I still don't understand you.
And a real
Enigma.
enigma, that's the word. Though, what you were saying about like how we could just look things up online, and considering the online presence that there is today, it actually strikes me as a bit odd that there's still Lego catalogs. Because if you think about it, you only get the catalogs if you've purchased online.
Look at it this way: the catalogs are still oriented towards the kids, and a lot of parents still don't like their kids going on computers at a certain age.
I have
Don't get me wrong; I'm sure there's probably just a lot less catalogs
spend too
getting
much time on the
sent
computer.
out or not, but it is was. But what I kind of like more of the catalogs, which Lego, as far as I'm aware, doesn't do anymore, are smaller size one, which are more like the size of Garfield books or like closer to like an envelope size. These were typically I think you'd get with sets like inside the box, and these ones I think were from like the 80s, 90s, early. Like the last one I have, I believe, was 2003. I don't think they kept having those in 2004.
I really feel like I should remember getting at least a few catalogs and sets. Like, I'm sure
I think your big adventure sets probably
exactly,
would
like
have.
the big adventure set must have had one, but honestly, I have no memory of them. I just remember them existing. I want to get a brand new, larger set sealed just to see if it's got a catalog in it.
See, that's one thing I'm actually not sure. I'm like, I don't know, because I've had a lot of them, but like I don't know how many came in sets. I do know at least one of mine came from a set. The only reason why I know this is because I could have, well, mine could have just been extras from Michael's and from our oldest brothers, but I do know I got one that was from an actual set because that was the one I used to get my Lego Club magazine,
Yeah, I
like
do.
like the
Yeah.
my club magazines because I used it from one of my back in one of those little catalogs. I remember
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, see, I don't remember getting those little catalogs, but I do remember the occasionally getting the mail-in club membership thingy, which I do know that was something separate at times.
Mm. But like to be honest, I just really like I actually do wonder just like if catalogs are even really necessary anymore because like just like looking at like as you were saying like with like the online presence like people don't use it anymore. Even just like looking at the catalogs nowadays,
They're kind of dull.
they just had a lot less in them than older ones did. Because what Lego did in older catalogs from the was like they'd have stuff from the previous year, but I mean, this is probably just also Lego market stuff. Like they would really have stuff that was on sale in the catalogs. You would see the sale prices on these things, like also items that they had like a boatload that they just put on sale. Like you would have a page of like last year's product and such. Like nowadays, you won't see a set in a catalog longer than like 1 year. Like back in the day, you would see it for like several years, and I don't
Depending on the
know.
theme, yeah.
I mean, Lego I think did just produce sets for a longer period of time, which why when I was younger I was able to get like because I basically started getting sets in 2001 more or less, and I was able to get sets from the 90s from like I think my technically oldest set I got like as a kid for like when this set was released I think was the Ninja minifigure set because I think that was released in like 98 97 and I got it in like my 6th birthday which was I don't know 2002.
I was gonna say I thought you got it with
With Harry
Christmas, but no, I'm thinking of me and Gerard who got it when
With
we got
Christmas money.
Kopakas. But on the thought like older stuff like the Muwaka and Connie Rob Bull, me and Gerard were debating and getting that when I believe I got my Nadiki.
Yeah, like well, the thing is, back in the day, like even up to, I would say up to about 2005, you'd be able to find like Lego sets like in major retailers like longer, Now I don't know if just Lego just doesn't produce quite as many because I mean
Sometimes it
they
seems like they do. Sometimes it
like
seems like they
it is
disappear.
interesting because like, you go to certain stores like we have here is like Mastermind Toys. You can typically always find stuff that have been out a bit longer. Like there are retailers that you can find older sets, but it was definitely a lot more common back in the day. And I think the catalogs very much reflected that where Lego just had stuff in their essentially in their like backlog of like their actual warehouse. They just had sets produced. They had longer life spans essentially.
I wonder if this even has to do with like the lack of official Lego stores in the olden days.
Honestly, it's really hard to say because like I feel like nowadays they're just trying to they have a higher turnover of themes. Like every year you got new town. Like you just always got new
Yeah,
stuff.
shorter attention
And
spans got to
and
keep.
you don't want the older stuff competing with the newer stuff, so you just basically have that's just the business model of them. I'm
Make it
assuming,
smaller.
but I did really enjoy. I think one of my favorite, the best, the funniest thing we ever saw in a catalog for a reoccurring set was in 2004, I believe. No, not 2004, 2005 or 2006. Is whenever episode 3 came out. 2006
Okay.
because they're every 3 years. There's basically a police station that because like this year at Star Wars they had basically a gimmick where some of the minifig could like light up. You push down their
Yes,
head
the light up
and
minifigure.
the lights light up, which is honestly kind of really cool. We didn't really
Yeah.
like it that much because it was kind of you couldn't really pose your hands
Yeah,
much,
I kind of wish
but
mine were
honestly it's a
better
really
condition.
cool novelty, and I kind of would be kind of cool to see brought back. But the Lego did that. They didn't use it for just Star Wars though. That's the thing. There was one other set that had this sort of light up function, and it was a police station. Some cop had a flashlight on like a raised base.
Yeah.
Now the funniest thing about this set was I remember we were making fun of him with the flashlight dude and all that, and the set was like retail I think 120. Next catalog comes around, oh it's on sale for 100. Next catalog comes around after that, oh it's down to $90. And I think it still was around for one more catalog and went down. Like every time it would be in a catalog, you would just see the price go down, down, down. It was basically like a meme in its own time for us.
I don't know if it was the gimmick, but my memory is somewhat vague on what the visuals look like. But I kind of remember it being a very gray station. That there was a wave where town was very, at least the police were very gray. And I could see it not selling because of the lack of color.
I believe it had basically 4 colors in the set: black, gray, trans, like smoky trans, and maybe some white. That there wasn't a whole lot of color in the set.
I sometimes question Lego's like absolute devotion to switch everything over to smoke gray. I like there was a charm to police with neon with trans green windows and light blue.
Well, they still do use the light blue a fair bit, just not as much. But now they're just more for some of them, some switching over to more realistic. But just seeing that one set go from like the retail, which was like a pretty expensive set, just to like get cheaper and cheaper. Like you could tell that Lego just was not selling this set, and it was really fun just to see that in a catalog because like each catalog there'd be like 3 in a year. You get the one at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and then like a Christmas catalog. And we just saw this set just like go down in price. And we're just like, oh Lego, you just really want to get rid of this thing, don't you? And I just thought it was really funny to look at.
And yet now, just because of the light up function, I would actually get it. I actually am very sad that I've treated my two light up figs so poorly because I've
Mm.
almost entirely broken Obi-Wan's head because I forced his head off to take off the cape.
Uh,
It still works, but the little pin in the inside hangs on by a thread. But it's not a huge issue since I popped it back on.
yeah, a little bit of a. And also that Mustafar set was one of those sets where it was like, I felt like you wanted it so much. By the time you finally got it, it was kind of underwhelming. Like I don't know if it was built up to a higher standard than you expected, or just you made yourself want it more.
I don't know if I desperately wanted or if it was an opportunity. I had an opportunity to get the set. It was like, oh, I could get this. But I do remember it being one of those, this is so cool, but I really don't know how to utilize this as the set it is.
I feel like it was really cool and you really wanted it, and then when you got it, you didn't. You kind of were like, wait, why did I want this again? Kind of
Well,
moment.
think about it, Paul. Like our live action Star Wars games, we never played the characters from Star Wars. So having Mustafar is kind of pointless if you don't feel like reenacting the Star Wars story.
See, that was just always a problem with Star Wars Lego myself was overall I just didn't care. But what can I say? The that's just Lego Stars. But I do remember like seeing those minifigs in those catalogs to start off with, and just we're looking at them going, really, really, they're lighting up, which is weird because like you look at it like when you think about with actual light up lightsabers, that sounds like the coolest thing ever. And when I was younger, I was just like, that's the dumbest thing ever. And I don't know, it's just because, well, because their hand, like attached to the lightsaber handle, the hand was like the same color as the arm. So the only minifig that looked good on was Anakin because he already had a glove. I remember with like Obi-Wan, the cop, and just like Mace Windu, it just always looked weird that they kind of just morphed into like a lightsaber handle. And I was just like, interestingly enough though, the set with Mace Windu, the clone turbo tank, they did release it a bit later with a non-light up Mace Windu, which must mean that like the set was popular enough, but they discontinued the mold for like the light up sort of stuff.
They had a light up Mace Windu?
Yeah, it was Mace Windu in the clone turbo tank, Luminara with the catamaran, and then your guys' too, and then
and Darth Vader.
Yeah. Interesting thing about the Mace Windu that was light up from the non-light up one, I believe the shade of purple blade was slightly different.
I do recall there being a new shade of purple that came.
But yeah, I remember that turbo tank I always wanted, more so because I'm the only guy with a purple lightsaber. I remember like, I want a purple lightsaber, because this is also when Lego had very little purple, so I really wanted the one set just because of the purple lightsaber. To be honest, back in the day, if a set had purple, I wanted it because purple just wasn't as common. Like even when they brought it back in 2004 with like the Night Bus and KK2, like even then it still wasn't wildly used. Really didn't become like really wildly used until like 2010, I think, when Friends came out or something. Sorry for the gas.
Friends, I would say the reintroduction of Bionicle, they just went all out. Yeah, I'd say Friends, they just went all out colors.
Bionicle Gen 2 really, the thing is about Batman is like, they had purple, but they didn't use it, it was one of the heavier uses, but I would say it was like when Friends came out, it was that time like the early 2010s is when Lego decided to start using purple a lot, and then like Chima started using purple in one of its ways, and just at that point you just kind of find purple in everything, and at that point it was less fun trying to collect every set that had purple, or at least get a copy of every purple piece, because at that point it was just becoming too difficult. Like I remember when like there was like a purple fig a year, had like you had Stan Shunpike and like Dandrew the first year, then you had like the Penguin with the short purple pants with the Joker the next year. Like purple figs were a rare high commodity. It was cool. Nowadays there's just so many of them, and I'm like, you're ruining the fun of it.
Like chocolate sprinkles, they're great, but you have them too much, they start to lose their magic. But I do want to say, while we are trying to talk about catalogs, that one of the ones that stick out to me was the Mars Mission one. It was thick.
Oh god.
Over 100 new items, and it was an epic catalog.
Yes, 2007 was the summer. The first 2007 catalog was something, because on the front of the catalogs they would say like over 60 sets or this, and I think like 80 sets was like a high one. But this one had, not only did it say over 100 new sets, but you just felt, and it was like, this was easily the thickest, like it's probably the thickest catalog that we have, and it was when Mars Mission came up, which basically brought back space.
And Mars Mission
was when Crownies, or the castle, basically came up with the Crownies. Fantasy era. Well, that's what people call it, but I don't think it was ever actually officially known as Fantasy Era. I think that's more just a fan name. But it came up with like a lot of good stuff, and it was like all new stuff, and it was just like 2007 was the year to be around.
2007 was the year to be
not only that,
teen.
But if you're like into Acquazone, well, they came with Aqua Raiders 2, which was like an homage to classic Acquazone. And you know what? I've grown to like that theme a little bit. And then, Exaforce was started in 2006, so it was still coming with the second year of Golden City, which, so like, 2007 was a packed year for catalogs. And that catalog definitely, just judging by the condition of it, got the most juiced, and like us boys basically on like just looking through it. Like it's definitely in a worse case.
Yeah, like after the KK2 catalog, or 2004 summer, this is definitely, I would say, the most heavily burdened by us.
Very heavily burdened. Interesting about the KK, we're just going to refer to the KK2 catalog, was that we had 2 copies, because you had your own copy.
Yes, I had my own.
I don't remember if that was just, it was like the 2003 one had my name, you had a I don't know if it was that, or because you so happened to do a Lego.com order and that came with it. I don't really remember the circumstance of that.
I think it must have been Lego.com because the one thing about that, even though it was through our parents' account, you got to put your own name in the order, and I wouldn't be surprised if this might have even been like Max. No, that was too late.
2004 just seems too
The
early for us.
airport maybe.
No, that was more. No, the airport came out in 2004. So, but I don't think you guys got it to 2005. I don't know. Whatever reason, we had two of these, which was interesting because Zach had gotten his copy earlier, and as we mentioned earlier, it was this holy grail of catalogs. It was a power source for our spaceship. Like I said, we were weird kids. However, it got really worn down, and then we got a second copy, so we had two batteries.
In fact, actually, I almost feel like we got that ours first, and I did an order, so I knew I was getting another one. We were waiting for that because I think our game was hinging on getting a new battery or something.
We knew we were getting a new one. That's all. Somehow we knew there was a game. Like I said, we were very strange children. But whatever reason, that paper, that little booklet of pictures, managed to be one of the funnest, dare I say, toys that we had during that era. Like, not only was it a great catalog to look at, but whatever reason, it transcended into a prop piece in our games. Which, you know what? I don't think very other things can say that, but it was definitely very amusing how it ascended to that level.
And believe you me, I intend to homage this. I intend to not let its memory die in my artworks.
To be honest, it's kind of one of those things where I'm kind of surprised we haven't like forgotten entirely about it overall, but you know,
We were too.
I mean, it's
we were
just
too
one of those
attached again
things.
to KK2.
But definitely like looking one of my favorite things that even still now I do still look at like old 90s catalogs just because one I just like seeing what old sets like in their like essentially art like their box art looked like, and it's just fun to see. And it's also a lot of times I'm just trying to remember what year stuff came out in. It's like what else came out in 1996, but just as an artistic like looking at something just for the pure art of it, looking at those old 90s catalogs definitely just they just had an artistic flair to the way they were presented.
And they really are classic. It's like just think you could give any one of us boys one of those old catalogs as a gift. I will treasure it. I will be like we'll greatly appreciate that, even though there's no practical value and we could literally own everything that's in the catalog already.
Okay, I think I'm going a little bit of a stretching there.
I don't know. You give me a 1994
okay,
catalog.
you would maybe. I think if I got a catalog, I'm like, oh cool. I'll just stick it to my stack. I already have like majority of the 90s catalog, so I'd be like, oh cool, toss. I don't know, like I said, there's a nostalgia to them, but the nostalgia only goes so far. It's like it's a cool novelty to have. It's like you get a new one. It's like, oh cool, a nice shiny new one of these, and then you probably forget about it, and then you just go to your other ones. But yeah, this has been a little rant about catalogs. Huh. If anyone made it this far, I'm impressed. I don't look at the analytics of how long far in the videos people watch because I've decided I'm not going to be paying attention to that. So if anyone made it this far, good job. Woo! Good job. Good job. You are you get a like, you get a thumbs up. I give you
You get a gold star.
2 gold stars even. In fact, I will give you a slap on the butt even. If you're into that sort
If
of
X
stuff.
not here, expect less order.
Well,
than
okay.
normal.
See, I didn't quite realize he wasn't going to be here for this podcast. So the topics I had ready to go, because I had 2 different ones I could have done. I both wanted him to be a part of. And then I didn't realize he was not going to be here, and he didn't even bring it up. So I'm like, oh great. So we had to come up with something on the fly, and this is what you guys get. So like I said, if anyone's been stuck around this long, thank you. You get a gold star and a slap on the butt if you're into that sort of stuff. And this has been the T.O.A Podcast. We'll talk to you next time. We're retiring from the night. Please subscribe.